Hey everyone, welcome to Machine Shop Tech Talk, where we go over a lot of the industry technologies. Today I have a special guest, Mark Briel from Sandvik Coromant. We're going to be talking about splines, gears, and how if you can do a keyway, you can conquer them all. Without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Mark.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the time to speak with you guys and your audience. So thanks for the invite and looking forward to talking about some gears and splines.
Awesome. So, Mark, I know when we were talking, we actually met thanks to Keith after I did a video with him. And we were talking about just making gears more, I want to say tackleable. That's not a great word. Um, but making it so job shops can tackle gear cutting and spline cutting without needing to outsource them to specialty manufacturers, really so that they can get more work through their doors and they don't have to no quote on a lot of jobs.
Absolutely.
So, how can you tell us maybe a little bit about yourself first before we get into the thick of it, so people can know how you got to where you are?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, again, Mark Briel. I'm actually outside of the Chicagoland area in one of our Sandvik Coromant centers here in Schaumburg, Illinois. I've been with Sandvik over 10 years now, and I actually started as a applications engineer here in the facility in Schaumburg. So the facility here is really kind of set up for training, R&D projects, and also implementing customer projects. So I started my career here at Coromant working with the tools, working with customer parts and projects, and really kind of very early on in my career at Sandvik Coromant, I got involved with the gear manufacturing. So really had that background throughout the years, and over the last few months, I've actually transitioned roles, and now I'm solely focused on gear manufacturing for North and South America. So gears have always been a part of my Coromant career. Now they're my sole focus, and I'm excited to have that opportunity.
Oh, that's aw I love stories like that because you're just continuing to push yourself where your strengths are, so you can give back to, in this case, the manufacturing community. Do we wanna start talking about keyways and then kinda branch out from there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, gear manufacturing, whether it's a gear, whether it's a spline, it's usually pretty intimidating when you're first starting, when you're first looking into it. I mean, you'll see a drawing, there's going to be a data sheet with all kinds of different information that's describing the spline and how it is and what it does and how to measure it. And again, it's very difficult and sometimes unapproachable. We stay away from them, or we'll see our customers say, hey, we're happy doing what we're doing today. We don't really need to expand into that kind of arena or that whole world of gear manufacturing. But really, what I try then to explain to the customers is relate it to an operation that they're maybe already doing in their facility today. And the easiest way to do it is just discussing a keyway. It's simple. I mean, if we look at shaft components, 9 times out of 10, there's some sort of keyway and or a spline. So if we've got a customer that's already doing a keyway, how do we translate that from a keyway to an actual spline? And it's actually pretty simple. And I'll pull up Mastercam here, which is kind of what I use
Yeah.
for 3D modeling and also programming here in the facility. I mean, if we look at this, we've just got a basic component,
Yep.
nothing crazy, nothing fancy. But again, maybe it has a keyway on it. It's got a keyway on it. It looks like we've got a nice rollout on the end of that keyway. So we're probably using maybe like a slitting saw. And depending on the width of the keyway, we're getting the right width slitting saw to then produce this. So we're on a call it a 3-axis lathe. So we've got that Y travel. We can get on the front side or maybe the back side of the component to produce this keyway. It's simple. It's easy. It's got a flat bottom, probably a little bit of a radius in the corner there, and straight walls.
Yep. Pretty
But if
straightforward.
we now, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say it when you're talking about how standard it is, I've never heard of a machine shop turning away a part because they wanted a keyway, but yet when we talk into going to splines, I hear lots of shops that, oh, like you said, they don't want to get into it. So let's see that connection that you're making here.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm actually just going to turn on one tooth. So let's just, if we were just for lack of a better example, we're going from one keyway to one tooth.
Yeah.
Really, the only difference is, are we've got tapered walls. We've got tapered walls. We've got a root radius down in that area. But all of that information is going to be defined in that kind of gear data table of the drawing. So if we've got a customer that doesn't understand that, it's okay. Because at Sandvik Coromant, we're the experts in the actual gear itself. We know how to interpret the data. We know how to read it, so we can translate that to an insert profile that's going to cut your keyway. So yes, it's a little bit intimidating, but we try and take all of that intimidation so the customer doesn't need to. If they can cut a keyway with a slitting saw, we can very easily produce an insert with a profile. So we've very quickly switched from a straight sided keyway to now a custom profile per the print. So we've got our one keyway here, but that's not really a realistic operation or not a realistic spline. This is a more realistic spline. So instead of one keyway or one spline, now we just rotated it around our part 12 times, 24 times, whatever it is. And again, that's information that's going to be in the title block of your drawing. So it's very simple. It's very easy. What we're just going to do is we're going to index once or twice, cut a tooth. Index once or twice, cut a tooth. The Typically what we would start at with a spline like this is we'd recommend one pass, and really that's just going to be an indication of what kind of tolerances do we need. What's the surface finish we need? I mean, these cutters, these gashing cutters, a 171.4 is what we would call it in at Sandvik Coromant. I mean, it's a single index, cut it. It's going to produce our profile. If we need to slow down, if we need to add a finish pass, it's just to make sure we're hitting the surface finish requirements. But it's going to be something that we work with together and get that solution implemented on your machine. And
Mhm.
and the one thing about gear manufacturing in general, especially when you partner with Sandvik Coromant, it's truly a partnership. We're going to work with you throughout the design process when we're initially building that insert to then cut your spline. And it's going to be a partnership from beginning to end. So once we do get that design, we do have the tools produced and manufactured. We're going to be there on the shop floor with you, making sure you can implement that spline correctly. We can gauge that spline correctly and move forward and hopefully bring more business into your facility. Because at the end of the day, again, it's a true partnership with respect to gear manufacturing, Sandvik Coromant, but also Sandvik Coromant as a whole.
So one of the things I do see a big difference between the average shop and the top performing shops is the average shop seems to still be stuck in that mentality where they got to figure out themselves what they need to do, whether it's gear cutting or whatever. In this case, we're talking gears and splines,
Yeah.
and they don't reach outside. Whereas I see the top performing companies, they are the ones like inching forward. Either if they're a job shop, they're sucking in more work. If they're an OEM, they're slashing their prices because they're really starting to find value in the network and they're like in within their supply chain. So in this case, partnering with Sandvik, there's so many companies that we work with that have reduced their cycle times, improved their costs, improved their profitability,
Yeah.
and it's all stuff that Sandvik brings to the table, which is really nice to see because not all suppliers are investing that much into manufacturing.
Yeah, absolutely, and you really hit the nail on the head. I mean, again, it's a true partnership, and the earlier that partnerships built and fostered, the more successful the opportunities are going to be, but also the larger number of opportunities they're going to be because we're looking at things from two different lenses, which is sometimes very helpful from the customer implementation side, but then also the tooling implementation side. It's a good match, and it's at the end of the day great for the customer.
It is. And I mean, I'm going to speak. So some of you watching right now be like, yeah, but these are sales guys. Like it doesn't benefit either of us to blow any smoke or make anything up here because in the end, I mean, I don't know about you, Mark, but I love when I get to work with someone and have them achieve something.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't want to be there trying to convince anyone. I got into distributorship almost 8 years ago after being a journeyman machinist. And I'm not here to convince anyone. I'm here to show you there's an opportunity to save a ton of money or improve your process. And if you don't want to take it, I mean, that's your choice as long as you know what's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a manufacturing family, and father owns a manufacturing facility, and it, I always loved from our side, and I love now seeing that from a customer side, is them building a bigger toolbox and adding more tools to their toolbox. Not an actual tool, but processes, different ways to process parts, methods, creation, seeing a customer kind of expand their portfolio, being able to attack new business and different business is always just exciting for me. I love seeing that, and it builds a great relationship as well.
Yeah, and hence why we're here doing this video. I mean, we're just trying to make more people aware of what's possible. So
Yeah.
when it comes to supporting the customers, and let's go and look at the screen share here. So on your Mastercam, you've got that rolled spline. Now, like you said, this all comes from the data table. It's already provided by your customers. They give you the profile of the tooth. They give you how many repetitions. Um,
Yep.
so you drew the first one, that first, and then you just rotated it 12, and it would be the same if it was 13, if it was 14, because the customer's already calculated that little V on what they need for their fit, right?
Exactly. I mean, kind of coming from the programming side, that's where I started at Cormont. I mean, it's a very simple toolpath to program. I mean, it's a straight line cut. It's a G1. We might need to do a rollout relief, so it might be a G2 or a G3 to then exit the component,
Yeah.
but it's really only a few lines of code, and with some very simple math, we rotate index our c-axis, and we do it however number of times more we need to, and we've got our finished component with all of the teeth on it that we need. So it's really a very basic kind of operation to program, but it can be very beneficial. And to be honest, what I recommend new customers and kind of new gear customers to look for are these splines, because they are in the grand scheme of gear manufacturing relatively simplistic. They're always going to be, straight. They're not going to be helical. The splines are really purely a male and a female to transmit power. So they're very simple, and it's a great way to enter the market, to build a little bit of confidence and understanding in what are gears and splines. And one thing that's important to note too is with splines, this is going to be a generalization, so it's not always true, but with most splines that we see, the method of inspection is a go no go gauge. So does my go gauge go? Does my no gauge not go? It's very simplistic when it comes to that. Obviously, it's just an entry point, and the sky's the limit with different types of aerospace spline tolerances and this and that. But the majority of what we see is going to be gauged with a go no go gauge, and then also a very simple measurement over pins. If we look to an external thread where we would measure over 3 wires to make sure we've got that thread depth where we need it to be, it's the same principle for gear manufacturing. We're just going to use two different pins. So we'll set a pin on the top, and if we're on an even number of teeth on the correctly adjacent tooth on the other side of our part, we'll get our calipers, our micrometer, we'll take a measurement. It's really simple to then get these splines incised and make sure we're going to be producing a good part or a good component. Obviously, as we kind of transition then to more of a gear, there's going to be a little bit more involved, and that's when we might need to look at getting a CMM to inspect that spline, or even what we call a GMM, a gear measurement machine, to measure that gear to make sure it is a good gear component. But again, the splines are just kind of that nice, easy, low hanging fruit. Enter the market, get more comfortable with it, and then really truly the sky's the limit with gear manufacturing, and especially with some of the new technologies that Sandvik Coromant's coming out has come out with over the last few years.
Yeah, and that's one thing I really like that you touched on there is the fact that this technology in manufacturing is continuing to grow in leaps and bounds. And the only way that I have seen where customers can really implement the best solutions to keep their cycle times down, to keep competitive, is by forming these partnerships and knowing who in their supply chain they can actually reach out to for this. In this case, when it comes to a lot, I do love recommending Sandvik just because you guys invest in so much talent and so much specialty on a global level that when we reach out, you guys usually can make someone available for the support that's necessary. Um, Nothing against anyone else that's out there supporting, but Sandvik just has so much support that they can give that you're not left hanging in the
Yeah.
situation where you're reaching out and you really want that support, but you're reaching out to a real small supplier that might only have one guy for all of North America, and he's tied up for the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, I always joke that luckily with Sandvik Coromant, the Rolodex of contacts that you can reach out to is quite large and vast, and you might not have your first guy to answer the phone, but there's definitely going to be someone there to answer the question and provide you with the solution you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. So we were talking about how simple splines are to get from keyways, which makes a lot of sense. It's the same go into the cut, roll out is all going to be real similar. So the next progression, let's say they have implemented your strategies here, Mark. They
Mhm.
have started to get some spline work through. They're getting comfortable. The guys on the machines are more comfortable with all of it. What would be the next progression that you would see?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the next progression we would see, and especially with kind of what we've seen now and the change in the market towards these mill turn style machines, is we're going to go from a small kind of simple spline on the end of a shaft to maybe a full gear. Maybe it's a straight gear or a helical gear. And just a little bit of context: the difference between a spline and a spline is just a segment of a gear. It's got a narrower overall tooth depth. A gear is just a little bit taller and has a little bit more depth to it. And with a gear, it's gonna what we call parallel axis gears. We can have straight teeth or we can have helical teeth. And really the difference in demand for that is just application. For a quick example, automotive internal gears and gears themselves are most always going to be helical gears because they transfer that power a little bit smoother, a little bit more efficiently. If we look at like a large agricultural equipment, it's probably going to be a little bit more straight gears just because the speeds and noises are not much of a concern with a large tractor gear per se. But kind of back to your initial question, I mean, the next step would be we would see that customer go to a full gear profile. So again, it's going to be a little bit larger, a little bit deeper. Might need a little bit different of equipment. I mean, for example, maybe my y-axis lathe only has a few inches of total y travel, but I've got a newer multitask machine with several inches, maybe 10, 12, 14 inches. Because with these gear cutters, we need to get on that front side or kind of back side of the gear to then produce the profile. So we're going to step up in our cutter bodies. We're going to step up in our inserts, and our inserts going to be a little bit larger to accommodate that profile that you've provided us the data for. So now we're really kind of expanding the capabilities, and then also again a little bit larger of a size and a bigger step up for the customer.
Okay. So you're starting to touch on it there, because I was going to ask, what kind of, so let's say they do the splines and they're getting more comfortable and they want to get more competitive. So are
Mhm.
mill turns like the most versatile when it comes to, I would say, more job shop gear cutting? I would imagine there's specialty profiling machines for gear cutting that would be, if you're an OEM gear manufacturer, like you're going to go somewhere like that. So would mill turn kind of be that middle ground?
Yeah, I mean, the really where our tools are, shine the brightest is that mill turn kind of portfolio or that mill turn platform. Because again, usually the chuck sizes are a little bit bigger, the lengths of machines are a little bit bigger. We've got more flexibility, and really with mill turns and especially newer mill turns, it's where our full portfolio of gear manufacturing tools love to live. I mean, whether it's a gashing where we're going to be cutting again one tooth at a time, or maybe even it's a brand new machine to a customer, or they're looking to buy a new mill turn and they want to implement power skiving, which is kind of the new buzzword in the industry over the last few years. And one of the things that I'm really focusing on in this new role is, expanding that business, getting more power skiving tools out there. So yeah, those mill turns machines, especially some of the newer ones, that they shine, they help my portfolio shine a bit brighter.
Well, and it sounds like that's the area right now where you have the largest amount of skill and support and tools at your disposal to support these manufacturers as they are looking to expand their capability, right? Because if I'm out there running a job shop, I want to be able to offer a large blanket of work solutions to the customers, whether I'm focusing on the local companies I work with, trying to give them someone closer to work with, or I'm trying to expand my scope. it just sounds, between talking to you today about the power skiving right now and just touching real quick on that conversation that I had with Keith Brake on the Coroplex YT, that was also a shining star for mill turn centers.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's becoming very clear in all these conversations that if I want to stand out and I want to be a high performer in the job shop world, I need to have a mill turn. And if I don't, that should really be my next investment.
Absolutely. If it's not on the floor today, I think that it's best if our customers are looking how to add it to the floor tomorrow or the next day or the next following year. I mean, the mill turn machines are just they're phenomenal machines with incredible capabilities. Like you touched, I mean, with the y-axis turning, power skiving, it's a great natural fit. But I also have gone to shops and job shops, and maybe they've got a turning part on the main spindle, but they've got a five-axis vise mounted on the sub spindle because they've got the room, they've got the flexibility, and maybe they got a gap in their bigger job. So hey, why not put a five-axis vise on this multitask machine and make it essentially a small little trunnion style mold and die five-axis machine? I mean, the capabilities of the machines are unbelievable.
It really is. I've even seen ones where guys have built big mill tables between the main and the sub spindle. And then so when they don't have turning work, because when they bought it, they were like, oh, we're 50% turning, 50% milling. They decided to go and they made a giant table between both spindles. And now they've got a huge articulating axis. Plus they've got their B-axis mill style head. So they've got a giant 5-axis table now, that they can put a lot of other stuff to. I don't want to get too far into the weeds. It sounds like we're both big fans of mill turns.
I think I've seen a trend.
What about the people that are watching this video and right now they've got 4-axis mills? Could they still be doing the splines and everything we were talking about with using like a 4-axis mill and a chuck?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have a basic three-axis mill here in Schaumburg, and we've put a rotary table on it. We've rotated the table up to 90 degrees, and we've done all kinds of different test cuts for customers.
Okay.
With that, we definitely need to focus a little bit more on the straight splines and gears, so
Yeah.
that they're not on that helical angle, because we might not have that axis needed. But they work great. There's usually a few more considerations to look into. I mean, are we doing a long, slender shaft? Do I need to be supported on one end, or do I have a nice kind of stubbed up fixture and hold work holding setup, so I'm not too concerned with that? So I mean, it's definitely absolutely doable. We just got work holding might be a little bit more of a concern. I was actually on site at a customer a couple weeks ago, and they had a whole line of brand new machines with rotary tables and our spline cutters in the spindle. So it's definitely something that's a very great option, because again, maybe we have a little bit larger of a part that we don't have enough y-axis or y travel to cut that spline on our lathe, but I've got a three-axis mill that I have a rotary table for. Absolutely, toss it on.
Yeah, and it gives again, I'm just trying to think about the shops that are out there like, well, man, I don't have money for a mill turn. I'm trying to get more work. So if they've got a 3-axis or a horizontal, like a 4-axis, like standard horizontal, then they do have options to start expanding their work capacity without needing to invest right away in a mill turn. Um, obvi-
Absolutely.
Still, that's the ideal path. But that would that still be the case in an OEM that wants to make their own gears? Would there be any difference here?
I mean, I don't think there's really a difference. The only then consideration you'd want to look for is what's your volumes. What are you truly a job shop or the OEMs? And it really comes down to volumes and what's the best solution for what you're looking at.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you were talking about power skiving. Now, I only got introduced to these tools about 4 years ago. We had a customer gear manufacturer that needed some solutions. At the time,
Mhm.
it was way out of my depths. It still kind of is, to be completely honest, Mark. Um, but I did know at the time we reached out to Sandvik and we set up some meetings, and there was a lot of data exchange on what we were cutting. So if they get like a power skiver, is there any flexibility in a power skiver, or is like each skiving tool for only a certain gear?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's actually The same answer for most of our solutions. For the gashing cutters and also the power skiving cutters, we are designing for one specific profile. So
Okay.
one specific tooth count, one specific tooth size.
Okay.
Um, and that's really the reason for that is it's how the gears are defined. As you add more teeth to the gear, the profile is going to change slightly. So that's where we're going to really define and then produce those inserts for that specific component. I mean, if we do talk about hobbing, yes, we can have a module for hob and cut multiple different tooth configurations.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that's just not the case with gashing and power skiving.
Okay. So there is possibility there depending. Um, so
Yes.
so from your experience, I don't know if you want to speak to this, but when does it make sense to bring power skiving in then versus say hobbing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if we look at it from an internal gear, it's an easy answer because you can't hob an internal gear. You really the only way to produce it is going to be shaping, which is going to be on a dedicated machine on the other side of the shop floor, or power skiving.
Okay.
So with that, it's a pretty easy answer. But if we do look at the external gears, that's where again it's probably going to come down to the volumes and how many parts are you going to produce, and then also again kind of to your point a little bit earlier, am I going to produce the same size to or the same size gear but with different number of teeth configurations? If I'm going to have multiple different configurations of tooth count, yes, I'm going to probably lean a little bit more towards the hobbing side and the gear hobbing machines. If I've got one or two parts and a dedicated machine, I'm probably going to want to set up power skiving where we've got less number of inserts, so our overall tool cost is going to be a little bit lower, and my overall inventory might be better because with the gear hobbers, they're large and they've got a lot of inserts and they do a phenomenal job. Again, if you've got that very high volume with a little bit of flexibility in the number of tooth count.
Okay. So I just want to contextualize a little bit when you talk about
Yeah.
high volume, like where does it change depending on the size of the gear, or is it kind of just, 10,000 is becomes that high volume number? Is there like a target in your mind when you think that?
I don't really have a target in mind. And really the only reason for that is every every gear is so different. Um, if I'm doing a low alloy steel that's not very hard, my high volume number is going to be very different compared to a 10-8 or a 718 Inconel where I'm putting a spline on it. So it's really tough. And again, that's again where the partnership kind of comes into. So Sandvik can help guide the customer based upon their inputs and their data what the best solution is going to be. So to have a number out there that I can pluck out and say this is a high volume, unfortunately, there just really isn't because everything is so vastly different with gears themselves, but then also the materials we're using to produce.
I appreciate that, and it's something I think I speak to it a lot, but it's when I went from the shop floor, right? And I'd been running machine shops and programming, I'd been in OEM, I'd been in like all of that world of it. But when I got to the distributor side, like Sandvik was one of the first ones working with my local guys, David Arujo at the time and David Coyle, who's now retired. He's been superseded by Joe Copon, but it was reaching out to them and they were super honest and transparent. And we're like, hey, can Sandvik do this? And they're either a yes or a no. The occasional maybe let me see what our engineers say because they're always aware of things coming down the pipe that might not be full solutions yet but might be applicable, but just being able to come to a company and say, hey, can you guys do this, and understand that the yes is a yes and the no is a no, and they're not going to misdirect you.
Yeah.
That it's so invaluable to have that type of partnership in your supply chain.
Yeah, it's tough to send the no quote emails, but I mean, I'd rather have a no quote email sent than a project that gets drawn out for years and months and it's unsuccessful. The customer's not happy. I'm not happy. So, as much as I hate sending the no quotes and the sorry we can't do this emails, at the end of the day, it's the best for everybody because, like you said, it's tough. But I also do send a lot of emails to the design departments like, hey, are we sure we can do this? Can you double check this, please, for me?
Yeah, and that just speaks again to the network you guys are setting up to be able to support manufacturers. Um, you're not it's not one of those impressions where, you're just doing it to make money. Of course, we're all in business here. We're all trying to earn an income for our families for whatever our reasons. But the fact that the dedication is there and you can see it through the acquisitions and promoting people like yourself up to those roles, so you're in a position to support these manufacturers. Yeah, I just really appreciate it.
It's definitely a fun position to be in, and it's a fun company to work with phenomenal people in the company, but also outside the company and the networks of distributorships we have. So it's fun.
Definitely. So we've talked about keyways, how they're so simple compared to splines. We've talked about using splines as a springboard to build some confidence on the shop floor. We've gone over the progressions, talking about helical gears and a full gear profile. How
Mhm.
mill turns are a great solution, especially for the job shop guys that want that flexibility. Is there more to contribute that you think would add value to those that are still watching here with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, and we've touched on it here and there, and I've touched on it is the power skiving, especially when we are looking at those newer parts. You know, we've entered the business, we understand gears, we understand splines, but now I want to work on an internal gear or spline. That's where the power skiving is really gonna highlight, or maybe it's an external gear where we have a shoulder behind it, or clearances aren't very good. Power skiving is a great option for that. But with power skiving, it's been a little bit slow to market over the last few years because we really needed to get the network of MTMs and MTDs, the machine tool folks, up to where we needed them to get the tools implemented correctly. And now I think we finally have a wonderful suite of machine tool partners out there that have these mill turn machines that can run the power skiving cutters. They've got the conversational cycles in the machine tool control to program the power skiving cutters and really produce the parts. And the power skiving, it is it's not the low hanging fruit. It's the fruit at the top of the tree, but once you can get there and once you have the equipment and the competence, it's really a door opener to almost any gear and spline you can see. It's a great opportunity, and again, the sky is truly the limit, and that's where hopefully all the customers end up.
Yeah, and so now that you guys are all set up, if there's someone watching this video and they've been contemplating what would be the best course, should they reach out to like Thomas Skinner or their local Sandvik reps or you directly? What would be the best course for them? The ones that are curious right now on taking that next step.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the best thing to do is go to your local Sandvik Coromant rep or go to your local distributor, Sandvik Coromant distributor, and start the dialogue there. We always The one thing I never like to do is I don't like to give my business card out because at the end of the day, I don't I want my sales team to build that relationship and work with that customer. Obviously, I'm in the Rolodex to help them out, but at the end of the day, those are the two that are going to be working hand in hand. So I always recommend go to your local Sandvik Coromant rep or your local Sandvik Coromant distributorship, and they'll get myself or whoever from the gear team involved to then kind of walk you through the process and get you into the front door of the gear milling shop and make your own shop.
Awesome. Straight to the point, and I really appreciate that, Mark. I just want to thank you for making time, for reaching out on LinkedIn. I know Keith introduced us, but to have this conversation so more manufacturers have solutions instead of turning away work, because I just want to see them all busy. And if this
Yeah.
is one less type of work they can turn away, I want to support that.
Yeah, absolutely. If the one takeaway from this phone call is chat is next time a customer sees that gear print, I don't want them to immediately slide the drawing onto the other side of the table. Take a look at it. Maybe call your local rep, and we're here to help you through the process and get that capability in your facilities. So I appreciate the time. Had a great time chatting with you, getting to know you a little bit better, and we're always here to support.
Well, thanks everyone for tuning in to check out this chat with Mark. I will have links to LinkedIn, but like he said, reach out to your local Sandvik Coromant rep. If you're not sure who they are, we can always try to connect you with them as well. They are a fantastic partner to have in your supply chain so you can tackle more jobs instead of no quoting on them. Until next time, keep your spindles turning and earning.